Morning, and welcome to members, officers, alongside members of the press and public that may be in chamber or watching online. Welcome in particular to Councillor Susan Masters, who's joining us to present a report from the Health Scrutiny Commission that she is chair of, and I will be bringing this forward as the first substantive item that we will be voting and inviting Councillor Susan Masters to talk to. As normal, the meeting is live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. And if there are any councillors that are unable to join the meeting in person with us this morning, but are online, you'll be able to speak to a report, but you won't be able to present the report formally, move or second. And indeed, you won't be able to vote, and your attendance will be officially recorded. And also, may I ask of members and officers speaking, if you could kindly introduce yourselves, clearly stating your name and your position, and if you are a member or ward, the interests of alerting members of the public that may be watching, and indeed members of the press. And then I'm going to now move on to the agenda items. So we've got agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Whitworth.
Okay, great.
Sorry, and Councillor Mumtaz Khan.
And Councillor Mumtaz Khan. Any other colleagues with apologies? No, okay, fine. Moving on to declarations of interest. The declarations of the interest statement is set out on pages 7 to 8. And in accordance with the members' code of conduct, this is time for members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests they may have in any matter being considered at this meeting, having regard to the guidance attached to the agenda. So on that note, are there any declarations of interest that need to be made by any member of Cabinet or the Executive as it relates to any of the items that we are considering this morning? That's a no. Thank you. And then as it relates to agenda item 3 minutes, and these are decisions of the Cabinet made on the 23rd of October, can I just receive an agreement that these are an accurate record of the decisions made on that date? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Appointments to outside bodies. There are no appointments to outside bodies. Then I will be bringing current agenda item 8 become agenda item 5, and then we'll take the rest of the items in the order that they're listed in the paper. So, Councillor Susan Masters, firstly, welcome once again. And this is the report from the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Commission on fit for purpose, Newham's leisure inequalities and the borough's plans to address them. And those are set out pages 143 to 174 of the agenda pack. And I just wanted to advise that there is a blank response document, appendix 2, and this is not the executive response, but the scrutiny's pro forma template. We anticipate the executive response coming to a future cabinet, and we're aiming for December, albeit December is within the normal 2-month period for responding to scrutiny reports as per protocol. And then, Councillor Masters, you have up to 5 minutes to introduce the report. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll only be taking those. So in July last year, Newham Council's Health and Adult Social Scrutiny Commission decided we wanted to examine our council's approach to leisure as part of our 2024 to 25 work programme. Although prompted in part by the arrival of a new provider to manage our leisure centres, Better, also known as Greenwich Leisure Limited, It was also felt this item would investigate the borough's historically low levels of activity. Despite Newham being a host borough for the 2012 Olympics, as recently as 3 years ago, it was estimated that only 1 in 3 children and young people and 58% of adults were doing enough exercise. In both cases, this was significantly lower than London and England averages. Thirdly, given the acute financial challenges currently facing the council, we felt it was important to ensure the council was getting value for money, as well as identifying and addressing any local inequalities. We know that at a national level, women and girls, disabled, and those with long-term conditions are less likely to be sufficiently active, particularly within global majority communities. The Commission examined this area over 2 meetings. The first examined the local data around inactivity levels, while the second, held almost a year later, concentrated on the impact of the changes brought through by Better, as well as that of the rest of our council-funded local activity offer, with a focus mainly on adults. While we recognised a lot of good work, which we felt we should be trumpeting more as a borough, our recommendations identified a number of key weaknesses. These related to the quality of data and metrics, as well as what we felt was a lack of overall strategy and ambition for our provision across the borough and across the life course, beyond getting residents active. We felt our new leisure centre provider's approach to worker representation needed to align better with the practices of the administration, and felt more should be done both to promote low-cost activity options and acknowledge the changing leisure landscape, particularly in terms of the mushrooming profusion of low-cost local options and the demographics they appeal to. We see this report as an opening snapshot for an ongoing area of focus, especially as the lens of ethnicity revealed some worrying gaps and issues we feel require deeper investigation. It's also intended that going forward, a sister piece looking at healthy weight will join our work programme. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. And can I just formally note, we really appreciate your consideration on a really important area, not least its contribution to our wider health equity agenda. I'm going to open up to questions. Are there any questions from any members of Cabinet? I can't see any hands up, but we'll provide a substantive response as part of the executive response. As I mentioned, that will come to the December Cabinet. And colleagues, if we can just move to the recommendations, and those are set out on pages 143 and 144. And then it's recommended in terms of the substantive recommendation of this report, and we've got to agree formally. It basically is the considering and responding to the report and recommendations as endorsed by overview and scrutiny on 23rd of October 2025, and in accordance with statute and the council's constitution, the Cabinet will respond, indicated how it's taken into account the scrutiny recommendations and provide an executive response to the recommendations made. Is that agreed, colleagues?
Agreed.
That's agreed. Thank you very much. Councillor Masters, you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of Cabinet meeting. And thank you once again. Okay. So, colleagues, the next agenda item that we're going to be taking is the receipt of Pride in Place impact funding, and that's in the report, agenda item 5, page 29, and you'll note that there is amongst the detail some really important and useful background, and I'll come to the recommendations in a short while. And we also have Tom Badger, who's the Area Regeneration Manager in the Community Wealth Building Service of the Inclusive Economy Directorate. And just for noting, Paul Kitson's given his apologies for today's meeting. as well. And we've got Yanni, with us. So colleagues, you may be aware that the government, announced its Pride of Place strategy, and published it back in September, of this year. And it's part of a number of missions that linked to the wider growth ambition of the new National Labour government as it relates to growth. And a key area is the vexed often issue of high streets. Antisocial behaviour is often at the forefront of our residents' minds, not just here in Newham, but also in London. And it's something that we take seriously and we are seriously addressing, as is the Mayor of London. And there is a collective effort underway to ensure that our public realm, our civic spaces, our neighbourhoods are vibrant and dynamic areas of growth and opportunity for our people. This report, in summary, sets out that we received as part of the government's Pride in Place strategy, an aspect of funding, specifically the Pride of Place Impact Fund. And we received, as did a few other local authorities in London, some 1.5 million. In line with our scheme of delegation, any matters that are over £1 million have to come to Cabinet for approval. And in this instance, this report is approving formally the receipt of the Price in Place impact funding. It's important for me to just flag that as a consequence of the specificity of the Pride in Place Impact Fund, we have also set out in the report how we intend to ensure as best equitable distribution across the borough, but also in alignment to our existing corporate plan strategies relating to our place vision. We have 1.5 million that we need to be committing within a timeframe set out by government, and we've got to commit and spend the funding by March 2027. And what we're intending to do is to ensure that we're at the very least committing that spend by March 2026, schemes concluding by March 2027. We have adopted a fair and proportionate approach so that each of the constituencies in Newham have at least one area within their that constituency boundary that will benefit from a proportion of the Pride in Place Impact Fund. And what we've decided, again, in line with our strategic framework as it relates to our place vision, is to look at the investment we've made to date, particularly that capital investment, and see where this money could be best spent. Because one other key criteria for government is that the impact of this funding needs to be seen as rapidly as possible, that it's for capital funding, and as a consequence, we've set out where we would be looking at directing this money. In total, it's important to note that the council under our administration has, from the point at which we received £40 million from the previous government's levelling up money, the highest allocation from the £60 million given to London, we've since invested a total of £60 million in and across our neighbourhoods throughout the borough. And this 1.5 million is a welcomed additionality. And we recognise that it is going to help support the progress of some key projects as part of our intent to ensure our neighbourhoods get the required investment that they need. As we know, there's been a particular focus strategically for almost 15 years prior to 2018 for a lot of the inward investment coming into Newham being in what was defined as the arc of opportunity. So that's that stretch from Stratford, where you've got the Queen Elizabeth Park, across the Lower Lee Valley, where we've got some really important strategic collaborations with the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, into the Royal Docks, where, as you know, it is only enterprise zone, in significant inward investment and being a aspect of the Mayor of London's growth plan for the capital. Happy to answer any specific questions, but I'm going to pass over to Tom to just from some of the detail, and specifically in terms of our approach in the three constituency boundaries of the borough, what particular projects or areas we are looking at directing this money. And at its heart, pride of place is absolutely about our engagement, involvement with our residents and other important stakeholders, including ward councillors and local MPs. I should note that we are not a recipient of the large amounts of pride in place money that require a board to be set up. The stakeholders, including local MPs, are members of. The only two places in London that have been in receipt of those large sums are Croydon and Havering. Newham is not one of them. So we are not intending to set up a board because that would be unnecessary and an erroneous use of valuable officer time at a time of real focus for the organisation across a range of pressing issues, given the demands that we're facing in temporary accommodation and social care. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to Tom. Over to you.
Thank you. Tom Bedler, the Area Regeneration Manager in Well Buildings. As the Mayor said, the Pride in Place Impact Programme, it's a UK government initiative to restore pride and belonging across the council have received £5 million worth of capital funding from this programme, and will act as the accountable body for the place funding, responsible for disbursement, monitoring and reporting. The council can choose to pay suppliers or make grants with this money. It has to be spent in 25, 26, 27. And given those short timelines, we felt best to build on the success of the programme that leveraged in levelling up funding back to, and a series of other successful grant awards, including heritage lottery funding, and build off that delivery of strategic capital investment, and really allocate this funding to existing place-based visions where we have ongoing delivery plans. Most useful areas that delivered in the timeframe set out. It were Beckton Park's master plan, expanding the reach of the Stratford vision beyond Stratford town centre into Maryland and Forest Gate, and the East Ham High Streets initiative, which has recently received funding from the GLA, the High Street Place initiative. Now, we don't, as this paper sets out, we don't actually have the exact project split at the moment. That will come under delegated authority in consultation with residents, MPs and ward members. But what we would like to do in this paper is approve the signing of the MOU and the allocation across those three areas.
Thank you very much. And just to specify, because large area, so you've got Forest Gate North and Forest Gate South, and the intention is of those areas that are captured in the Stratford Vision framework. So there's been the mention of Maryland, Forest Gate, but it's Forest Gate South specifically, and also West Ham Ward. are going to be the three areas where there's going to be some consideration as part of the geographical spatial footprint as featured in the Stratford vision. I'm going to pause there and take some questions. Over to you, Blossom.
Thank you, Councillor Blossom Young, Cabinet Member for Council Housing Improvements and Ward Member in Beckton. So I'm especially pleased to see the proposed investment in the Beckton Parks Master Plan, which is transformative for Beckton residents and incredibly important as in unlocking the kind of next steps in that suite of initiatives in the area, but also really pleased to see that this is aligned to the strategic priorities of the borough and completely the right decision in terms of making sure the funding can be spent in time. I noted the point about the Pride in Place larger scale funding and this being the smaller variety, and obviously a split of that across different areas of the borough inevitably has the potential to dilute the impact of that capital. So I'm interested in how, in the way that's been done previously, that can be utilised and leveraged with additional investment from the council, and whether you have plans for that at the moment.
I think one of the key reasons for picking these areas is we felt that there was potential for further MAP funding in these areas. We haven't secured any of that funding yet. To look at how leveraging further.
For example, in East Ham, we have funding from the GLA to define a strategy for the area. We feel that by allocating some funding to deliver on that strategy, there is potential outline for that funding opportunities in the other areas as well.
And I think just building on that, and what I said as part of my introductory remarks, as it relates to, you know, officer focus on responding to a raft of demands and pressures that we're facing, particularly in the context of best value. I think the other lens that's been applied to the approach has been the value for money lens and best value, and it makes absolute sense in the context of a government that has very much a reformist bent, in the sense that it wants to demonstrate to voters that money is being spent well. I think it's well to be able to show that we are considering these funding elements, you know, that we get as part of a coherent approach to spending public money and building on schemes that we've already either invested directly or we've had or been in receipt of public grant. Yeah, I'm going to bring in Sarah and then Councillor Zulfikar.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sarah Ruiz, Cabinet Member for Children's Services and Sustainable Transport, and currently Ward Member for Custom House. So part of Beckton Master Plan actually sits in my ward, so we share it. And quite clearly, there has been a lot of chatter around the what was the city farm. So I'm really pleased to see that we might be actually looking to see what we can do in that area that isn't actually a replacement for the Newham City Farm. So I'm sure that residents around that area will be eagerly looking to see what we're going to be doing there. So as will I. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I mean, just to clarify, designate, well, in the context of the south of the borough and that, or that part of the borough, so it's Beckton Parks Master Plan, and absolutely, as it relates to the animal offer, you know, that's something that we have agreed in Cabinet, and I'm looking forward to scoping out how we can progress towards the realization of that in the context of an apportionment of this Pride in Place money towards that. The only thing that I would say is that obviously Pride of Place has specificity in terms of what national like to see being addressed, and they're very clear as to the kinds of things they want to see addressed. Right, are there, councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Zulfikar Ali, Cabinet Lead for Finance and Resources. As you said, Mayor, this is a small amount, but anything is welcome, and it's good to see that it's going in the right places. My question is about how is this going to clearly improve civic pride, and particularly how are we going to do that in areas which are not going to be directly benefiting from this? So, because we're looking at the borough as a whole, yes, the money is going to, but how are we going to support civic pride in other areas which are not benefiting from it?
I think there's ongoing work in those other areas which we're keen to continue doing as part of our wider programme of work. So I think that's in answer to your second part of the question.
Yeah.
And then I think it's also important to note that with the place visions that are established through this have been developed in consultation with a lot of community members, hopefully are able therefore to deliver on what the community wants in those areas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. All right, so colleagues, can I just draw everyone's attention to the recommendations? So that's on big page number 30. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, the Mayor and Cabinet is recommended to agree. 2.1, enter into a memorandum of understanding, which is set out in Appendix 1 with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, that's MHCLG acronym, and receive 1.5 million capital funding via the Pride in Place Impact Fund programme. 2.2, allocate funding to the LBN Pride in Place programme to be spent flexibly on existing place visions across the 3 parliamentary constituencies. See section 4 in the report. And then 2.3, delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy, Housing and Culture in consultation with the lead member for Inclusive Economy, Strategic Housing Delivery, Culture and Youth Power to agree the allocation of funding across projects within the programme and to amend allocations as delivery plans evolve. Is that agreed? Agreed. All right, great. Thank you very much. Now we're going to be moving on to the Holiday Activity Food Programme Grant 2026 to 2029. So colleagues, this will be the first of 2 reports. No, actually 3 reports that will be coming to Cabinet in the next few months. This first one basically sets out the anticipated 1.8 million to 2.2 million pounds that we are to be receiving from the Department of Education. We have been delivering over recent years a programme called the Holiday Activity and Food Programme. We anticipate for a period of 3 years the 1.8 to 2.2 million pounds to be received. But as yet, we have not had clarity from the Department of Education as to what the final amount will be. We expect that in December, at which point we will be coming back here and notifying Cabinet as to the exact amount. The reason why this paper is coming forward is because the officer team will need to commence its work with our valued partners, primarily in the voluntary community and faith sector, as well as small local organisations, small businesses, to be part of a network borough-wide of providing this holiday activity and provision across Easter holidays, summer holidays and Christmas holidays, starting from the 2026 financial year. And if we brought this paper to Cabinet in December, it wouldn't give officer colleagues sufficient time. The report also sets out the scale of intended beneficiary. That's some 25,000 children, young people who are eligible to access this, but they also are children that need to be encouraged through their parents to sign up for the preschool scheme that is available in all primary and secondary schools. I know that you'll all appreciate that presently we invest to the tune of some £6 million, or we had been investing to the tune of some £6 million for our own universal Eat for Free programme, targeting specifically primary school kids. At the time, that money is being in large part covered by the Mayor of London's free healthy meal scheme for primary school kids. But we do have, and we have had a long appreciation of the position of secondary school pupils. So the paper also sets out that there is relating to how we work with schools in order to drive up more of the households where children are eligible for the free school meals provision, and also for schools to benefit from what's known as a pupil premium. And the reason we want to do that is to ensure that we maximise the number of young people, either in primary school or secondary school, that can benefit from the holiday activity and food programme. So there's more detail in the report. As mentioned, this is the first of 3. The second will be a report confirming the actual map that DFE will be providing us for the coming financial year 26-27, alongside the approved providers for the holiday activities and food programme for the 2026-27 year. And please note that we're expecting over a 3-year period a similar range amount of 1.8 million to 2.2 million. You'll also note in the report that this is a really important programme as it relates to our food strategy, our strategies as it relates to our anti-poverty drive, and also as it relates to activity-related strategies, including our cultural strategy. And this is a really valuable provision for those young people across school holidays that are often and for too long have been left out from the ability to access a range of fun, interesting, enriching things for them to be doing, because simply families can't afford it. And this programme enables us to provide something of value. And I'm really excited that through the review process, which will be the final report that will be coming to Cabinet, we'll be able to set out how we're linking the things that we're doing already, either in enrichment, in culture, sports. We've heard around health inequity as it relates to physical activity, but also in collaboration with our voluntary community and faith sector. 1.8 million to 2.2 million is not a money, it will have impact. So I'm going to pause there. Would you like to say a few things? I know that Esther isn't here, but would you like to contribute?
Yeah, sure. So just to introduce myself, I'm Sam Gomersall, Senior Commissioner within the Youth Empowerment Service. And as the Mayor has set out, the programme has been extended by the Department for Education for 3 years. And overall, nationally, it's worth around 600 million. And then to us, as the Mayor set out, between 1.8 and 2.2 million each year. It provides enriching activities, nutritious meals, and both these safe and inclusive spaces for our children and young people. And it's the eligibility criteria is that children and young people are on income-related free school meals. The paper sets out our wish to accept the grant, but also delivery plans, which includes way that we see ourselves increasing the number of young children and young people coming and engaging in the HAF programme, which we know we can increase. The number of attended places is quite high. The number of unique young people is relatively lower compared to what we think is achievable. That's the paper sets out some particular changes around moving to an annual tender, a hope and a desire to reach more geographical areas and finally to improve the provision for children with special educational needs and disabilities.
Thank you very much, Sam. And can I just commend you also for all the work that you've put into the report, but also to the delivery of the programme over recent years. And please pass my thanks on to the team as well. Laura, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Nothing to add, no.
All right, super. I'm going to open up to questions. I've got Young, Councillor Zulfikar Ali and Councillor Sarah Lewis.
Thank you, and I really welcome this. I wondered if you could expand a little more on the last point you were making. So noting the number of unique children and young people who are accessing the service versus the number who are eligible, and whether you could expand a bit further on plans for increasing take up over the next 3 years.
So overall, last year there were just under 5,000 children and young people that attended. So that's across the 3 holidays in 2024. In the summer, we had around 3,900 children and young people attend. I think there's probably 3 things in terms of how we increase that number. The first is direct marketing, so working with our colleagues across council around paid advertising where that's appropriate. Secondly, and hopefully this paper sets out some of this, is improving the procurement process should allow us to have more areas reached, maybe with slightly fewer places in each location that's being delivered, but it should allow an increased number of children and young people to attend. And finally, continuing to engage with schools, with our the other directorates and teams across the council, public health, resident outreach, things like that, to increase the awareness of the programme more generally.
I've got Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Thank you, Chair. My question is around the proposal. It seems like we are saying that 500,000 we can deliver in-house and roughly 1.2 million through external providers. Bearing in mind the council's financial position, is there capacity or opportunity for us to, I appreciate that we want to bring in small SMEs and the other organizations in the borough to actually benefit from this, but bearing in mind where we are, is there opportunity for us to actually structure ourselves and try to provide more in-house in order to support the council in terms of the financial difficulties we have?
Sorry, can I just respond to that? I think that would go against the spirit of the holiday activity and food programme, and it wouldn't be something that we would countenance. And I think the points that Sam has made in terms of actually our focus is to work with our wider partners in the borough in order to expand reach and depth is the prominent area of focus for us as a council, not least in the context of your best value budget pressure question. In order to help alleviate that, I suspect that we are able to address some profound issues of income inequality, unfairness and poverty that is placing pressures in some other parts of the council because households are going for help if we get this one more effective in terms of our delivery. I hope that helps. I'm moving to Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Thank you, Councillor Sarah Ruiz, Cabinet Lead for Children's Services. So thank you for also taking on board the questions and issues that were raised when we discussed this before. Much appreciated. Just touching on a couple of things, I think that we have got it. I think that encouraging parents in primary school to apply for their pupil premium is much easier than it is in our secondary schools. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, is that meals in secondary schools are not provided in the same way. So they're like a canteen, you take it or you leave it. And actually, many of our young people, unless they're locked in at lunchtime, which is always good for the neighbourhood, don't actually, then it's not delivered in the same way. So I think that schools need to understand the benefits of their kids applying for a pupil premium, because it isn't just about free school meals. So I think that there's a job of work for us to do in education, probably, to actually address that, particularly, I think, in our academies who don't necessarily see the importance of it. I'd also, I also think it's interesting that schools can allocate up to 15% for those families that aren't in receipt of any benefit. And we actually see a larger proportion of that happening, certainly with the the vouchers, which I know is not part of this. Schools are able to sort of take their own initiative. But one of the things I noticed is that in previous years, the food that is provided, I always was under the impression it should be a hot meal. And I think that if that's not the case, then I think that we maybe need to look at how we encourage hot meals, certainly during the colder periods, because when we say at least one meal a day, breakfast, lunch or tea, well, actually it's a bit of a cop out for some of those. You know, that could be a bit of toast and they get. So I'd like us to look at how we can ensure that not only is it a hot food, but actually it meets a certain standard. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Yeah, I mean, breakfast could be a piece of toast and that's it.
Just to provide some reassurance around that, so that the EFI guidelines do say that they don't explicitly say it has to be hot.
Okay.
Our menus providers submit their menus in advance, which are then checked by our public health team to hopefully meet school food standards. And if we had concerns that the whole of their provision was going to be
Sandwich, yeah.
not hot meals, we'd be able to kind of go back to them and have that conversation.
Thank you, Sam.
Just to that point, in the report, it does also reference the importance of our approach linking into the broader strategies relating to food security, healthy eating and the like. And it will certainly be something that we'll be delving into more when we go through the review of this, and certainly in the context of how do we leverage this programme to further evolve the healthy food ecosystem here in Newham, and hot meals quite central to that. Right, okay, so are there any other questions, colleagues? No, I'm going to suggest that we move on to recommendations. So if you can note the recommendations on big page number 122, going into 125. I'm not going to read it out, but I just wanted to just draw your attention to 2.1 recommendation. And that just sets out the expected amount to be received from the DFE, the total between 1.8 million and 2.2 million. And that will be to deliver the HAP programme for the Easter, summer, Christmas holidays. 2.2, similarly, noting that we're expecting between 1.8 million to 2.2 million. That's specific to the 2027, 2028 and 2028, 29 years, whereas 2.1 was specific to 2026, 27. 2.3, as mentioned, there's going to be 3 reports in total. And the next one will be a report presented to Cabinet to confirm the total HAP grant received from DFE for financial year 2027. And then 2.4 talks to the review process of how we've been delivering HAP to date as we progress with preparations for next financial year, Easter, summer and winter. And then 2.5 talks to the lots that sit within the HAP programme. So there are 4 lots: primary school age provision, secondary school age provision, targeted special educational needs and disabilities provision, and then SEND provision. And then 2.6, delegate authority to corporate director for children and young people in consultation with the portfolio lead to approve the list of organisations who will be awarded HAP contracts for the delivery of the HAP programme in 2026, which will be presented to Cabinet to note. Okay, so is that agreed, everyone?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Right, we're now going to be moving on to agenda item, it's listed as 7, but it's actually 8. We took the scrutiny report first. This is pre-procurement report approval, schools capital condition programme 2026-27, and I'll invite Councillor Sarah Bruce to talk.
Thank you, Chair. As in previous years, we are coming to ask that we can go out to procurement or pre-procurement early to enable us to be able to have contracts in place to deliver the buildings ahead of time. In other years, it's always been a bit late and then it all gets messed up. Most schools will do their building and refurbishments probably in the summer holidays. And this report allows us to get ahead of the curve, get the procurement done so that we are ready to the schools to head in their holiday period. And obviously this is just the first of a report. Another report will come back once we've actually had the amount of money established and also how we are going to be delivering that. So it's a bit like the HAP report, getting ahead of the curve. Thank you. Both Trina and Sue are here. If there are any questions for us.
Do you like to say anything ahead of that?
Trina Lyons, Head of Project Management in Properties teams. Just to make aware, obviously, that we don't know what funding we're actually going to get from the DfE until the end of March usually. So as Councillor Severus was saying, that we're starting early with the procurement so that we have the time to get the works done around the summer holiday period. And obviously, if we didn't get the money that we think we're going to be getting, we would obviously adjust the programme accordingly to the money we have available by prioritising the schools, prioritising the schools of what might be required.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, I just want to, just for consistency's sake, we've now got 2 papers that are expecting to receive amounts, but specific amounts to be confirmed. In one report, it's bringing it back for noting just as part of our healthy governance, but you've got a second report that doesn't say that, and I would want for this to be picked up corporately so that these are addressed and for us to use a form of words that this comes back for noting. I just think it's really important.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Could you advise on a form of words that we can add to the recommendations, please? Are there any, in the meantime, are there any questions? Yes.
I had a question just about the learning from last year. So I recall a similar process where we were looking at the procurement or agreeing the procurement routes in advance, which makes complete sense. And I really welcome seeing in the appendix a kind of 3-year forward, just in terms of being able to give some, not certainty because we don't know the funding amount, but some indicative sense of travel. And I wondered what the feedback from schools has been from that approach, and what learning have we had from moving to this methodology?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So that it gives us enough time, a further time to actually deliver the projects during the summer holiday period, and sometimes earlier and sometimes later, where a project might take longer than 6 weeks to do. So I think by bringing it all forward, I think the feedback is that obviously we can deliver a lot more in that summer holiday period as well. So I think it's quite positive feedback in terms of the early works, that we can take forward.
And just to add to that, if you don't mind, Councillor, when I go visiting schools and they've had their windows changed or a bit of their roof done, they really appreciate that happening in the summer holiday, so it doesn't lessons and the children within the school.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, colleagues? No? Okay, fine. Okay, so just to the point that I raised previously around consistency. In the previous report relating to the HAF, there was a recommendation, no, 2.3 that stated to note that a further report presented to Cabinet to confirm the total HAF grant received from the DFE for financial year 2026-27. We're going to use similar form of words for an additional recommendation, which would be new recommendation 2.8, which would read to note that a further report presented to Cabinet to confirm the total capital funding received from the DFE. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, great. And then just noting the recommendations as published in the report. So that's 2.1 to 2.7, and now we've got 2.8 as it stated. Do we agree all those recommendations?
Agreed.
It's agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, we're now gonna need to just note, could we just note agenda item 10, which is exempt minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of October 2025. That's on pages 157 to 176. Is that noted, everyone?
Noted.
Okay, and then just note agenda item 9, exclusion of the press and public, which we've not needed to vote today. Has that been noted?
Noted.
All right, brilliant. On that note, we're going to be concluding the meeting. Great.
Minutes, 50. Made it.